Hi, I'm Lindsay from Writing Room, and we are here with Jon Land, whose new novel, Strong Enough to Die, is now available at bookstores. Welcome.
It's great to be back.
It's great to have you back. And you're here with your new novel, who is featuring Caitlin Strong, who is this amazing character, and I think is your best book yet.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us a little bit about Caitlin?
Caitlin is a fifth-generation Texas Ranger, which is an important thing because in the book she's the first female Texas Ranger ever, and it's a male-dominated culture. So to explain why she's so readily accepted by all these men, the fact that she's a fifth-generation Ranger, that her grandfather and father were both legends, of course they're going to accept her. So she is a female action hero, which of course is very unique, but she's got flaws. She's not perfect. Something happened a few years ago, Lindsay. So she's left the Rangers when the book opens, and she's seeking redemption by working in what's called a torture recovery center, which is actually where the idea from the book sprang from. I didn't realize these places exist. In a torture recovery center, or a survivor center for the victims of torture, all these unfortunate people who are, brutalized in torture camps or by the United States government in foreign countries are rehabilitated, or at least they try to rehabilitate them, in centers that specialize in that kind of post-traumatic stress. Sometimes the physical trauma is impossible to overcome. All the time, the emotional and mental trauma is virtually impossible to overcome as well. So Caitlin decides to redeem herself by going to work in one of these centers, where the first person she treats is the husband she thought had been killed in Iraq.
And she is this dynamic character who has a bunch of stuff going on. How did you create her, and what was your first thoughts, and how did you create her flaws and then her great characteristics that make her so strong?
She came into existence for two reasons. One, I'd always wanted to write about the Texas Rangers. It's always been something. I've always loved Westerns. And the Texas Rangers are the most legendary lawmen in the history of the United States, not just Texas, obviously. And they still exist to this day. They were first established in some form in 1823. There aren't any other law enforcement groups that are still around after all those years. I'd always wanted to do that. That's nothing new. What's new was I wanted to create a female action hero who would come back in book after book after book, because no one else is doing it. Maybe I only have one original idea in my life. Maybe this is it. And Caitlin is that one female action hero who does all the things that the heroes of Vince Flynn's books and Lee Child's books and Jim Rollins' books, all the same things that they do, Caitlin does. But she's a woman, and since 80% of all books are bought by women, I thought, and we won't know this for a while, but would a female audience accept a female action hero written by a man? And
she is so delightful to read, and she's so strong. How did you give her female characteristics, and how, as a man, did you integrate those? That's such a good question. Here's the thing.
I've written about Arabs. I'm not an Arab. I've written about Israelis. I'm not an Israeli. I've written about serial killers, and I'm not a serial killer. I've written about kids. I haven't been one of those for a long time. You really learn, and I think it's the same question you could ask an actor. How do you get into this role? How do you play this role? I mean, when Heath Ledger played the Joker, how did he do it? How did he create that character that was so mind-bogglingly chilling? Well, you do it by putting yourself in their heads. I created Caitlin Strong. I created a black and white shell. She did all the coloring herself in the course of the beginning of the book, to the point where I saw her in my head. And it wasn't so much that I was creating her as she was acting out a movie that was spinning around in front of the eyes inside my brain. And I was just typing what I saw and what I heard. How did I write a woman? Well, I didn't set out to write a woman first. I set out to write a Texas Ranger. And if people criticize me for writing a woman who's too tough, or, boy, she could have just, if you call her Carl, you could just change the entire book without changing another thing. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. I do believe she does display some sensitivity. But if you're a Texas Ranger, you have to have a mindset and an ethos that transcends gender. I switched the paradigm. I made the male lead in the book the guy with the kids, and I made the female lead the loner outcast who doesn't want to deal with anybody else in the world.
And you do a great job with that, but you also do a really amazing job with your details. Your storytelling ability is much past the story. You paint this beautiful picture that is very different than a lot of authors.
But I haven't always done that. I think all writers, as Victor Hugo wrote, good writers borrow, great writers steal. And we all, as writers, start out and perhaps continue impersonating our favorite authors. But the difference is, as you get more confidence, you can pretend to be other people. I think for a long time I was just pretending to be Robert Ludlum or Stephen King or someone. I've written books that were total rip-offs of books that I liked. I mean, there wasn't an original thought in the entire book. I think with Strong Enough to Die, in addition to the female heroine, in addition to some of the other things we've talked about, what I really tried to do was channel a little more James Lee Burke, who writes the great Dave Robichaud novels that are set down in the bayou, down in Louisiana. And I wanted to create a sense of place. I wanted to put my characters in a different kind of landscape, to the point where, to say it best, and this is right, the great thing about writing is you never stop learning, you never stop going to school. I got a great piece of advice not long before I started Strong Enough to Die. In every scene, always know where the light is coming from. If you always know where the light is coming from, you'll describe everything around the light, and your descriptions will become so much more rich and vivid. If you don't know where the light is coming from, you'll be very vague. So in Strong Enough to Die, I really have strived to flesh out the canvas in a more complete way, because the book, although it's really fast-paced, full of action, it isn't action-dominated. It isn't action first and characters second. It's characters first in the midst of their action. Every scene is written from the perspective of a different character, and they're all so conflicted. They're all going through such turmoil in their lives, and I think that's kind of a metaphor for the times in which this book is being written in. I don't know anybody who has it easy right now. I don't know a single person who if they're not struggling now, they are worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. So I think what you get in Strong Enough to Die is a book about people whose lives are a microcosm of what so many people are facing today.
What stole Caitlin Strong's innocence that made her so strong and have to hit the wall?
That is a great question, and it's a question I asked myself in writing the second one, because I didn't know the answer. Why does she keep pulling away? And this is what, in the second one, Strong Justice, we can just rerun this interview then. Strong Justice will get into that thing. What her past will reveal, something that changed her life forever that she doesn't remember because it happened when she was too young. Changed her life forever. And if you read the first one, the clues are all there. I put them in not even knowing what I was going to do, but they're all there. The fact that she was raised by her father. You know, we don't ever talk about her mother, or at least not very much, in the first one. But all the questions about Caitlin Strong and why she is this way, what made, the loner hero, I mean, are answered in Strong Justice. So we'll see. I don't want to give it away because it's not in Strong Enough to Die. But I think it's a traumatic. It would be enough to say it was a traumatic childhood experience.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for all your advice. Everyone, go out and buy Strong Enough to Die. You are going to love it. Thanks for joining us here at Writing Room, and we'll see you soon.